guy in the NBA should ever wear 23.
I've been working on that shot my whole life, and for that one to go in, that was liberating right there, man.
And I'm not shoving it aside, like it don't mean anything. I know it's important. I honestly do. But we talking about
23 Shots to JD podcast.
Hey guys, welcome. Oh, jeez, that was a bad break. Hey guys, welcome back to the 22 Shots to JD podcast. I don't know if you can really tell, but my voice is a bit, I guess, more gravelly than usual. Probably makes me sound a bit more masculine, I guess, or sexier, probably on the contrary to the usual podcast. But yeah, the podcast, if I don't know how many people, you probably definitely noticed because I've been getting hit up saying what happened to the podcast for this week. Obviously, if you're listening to this and you have listened to the podcast before, you know that it is a day late. Sorry, that's just because yesterday, if a lot of people don't know, I live in Australia and it was Australia Day. And as per tradition on Australia Day, for any Aussie, or really if you're just in the country for Australia Day, the tradition is just to get absolutely fucked up. You just get absolutely munted and you just get destroyed instantly. Had a great time, a lot of drinking, obviously, getting crazy, having a lot of fun and stuff. So, thought, it wouldn't be just to do a podcast on Saturday just because I wouldn't be, I was pretty hammered. I'm going to be honest. I'd be hammered and I would have some pretty crazy hot takes and stuff like that. And it just got wild. Which, surprisingly, I know a lot of you guys do want the podcast to have a wild episode. I know I had one ages ago with my friends Lang and Ben. That was probably one of the most popular podcasts, actually. So it might be something that you guys wanted. Maybe I'll try and organize something in the future. But just thought, maybe hold off for a day. Especially, there was a lot of games on Saturday in Australia time, I guess, that would probably influence a lot of the things I'm going to talk about. But yeah, just happy Australia Day to all the Aussie fans. Obviously, as I said, it is tradition to just get absolutely munted. As well, I don't know if it's tradition all over the place, but it's probably well known, at least in Australia, to do the classic beer wand or the beer walking stick, as some people like to call it. Where basically you get a bunch of tinnies or can beer, I don't know what you guys call it in the States or the UK or whatever, but basically canned beers, and you drink it, and then once you drink it, you strap it, you start strapping multiple cans on top of each other every time you drink it, and basically the bigger one you have, that means it's usually just a signification that I really fucked up you are. So I did that, and yeah, dude, I would have been super hammered to do the podcast, so definitely a bit later than usual, but hope you don't mind, because I'm basically going to just touch on a lot of things that it's probably been addressed before, but I think probably put my own spin on it and things like that. So obviously, within the last episode and now, the NBA All-Star starters got announced. Let's be honest, people try to make news out of it just because it is the NBA All-Star, but I think it was everything that we expected from it. Obviously, in the East, we saw Kemba Walker and Kyrie Irving get picked for these two starting guard spots in the Eastern Conference, and we saw Giannis, Embiid, and Kawhi Leonard get picked at the forward spots. And then over to the West, we got Curry and Harden, no shockers there. And then we got Paul George, Paul George, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James. And the two captains, LeBron James and Giannis Antetokounmpo, which I guess I'll probably start there. I think LeBron was always going to get picked as captain, even though he's missed a myriad of games as of late. He's still probably the best player in the world, playing one of the biggest markets in the world, and I think it was pretty clear that he was always going to be number one. I'm surprised how comfortably he was number one, because you would think Curry obviously was the captain last year, so you thought maybe there would be some competition there, but it became clear that LeBron James, even though missing a lot of games, became captain. And on the other side, Giannis Antetokounmpo, which, all honesty, I'm very happy about. I think he was a very deserving person, obviously probably the front runner for MVP, so it shows that the NBA fans are, they're not sort of idiots, or I guess, just doing the popular vote type stuff, doing a popularity contest. Even though Giannis is a very popular player, I'm not saying that he doesn't have a massive fan base, which definitely does, because the Greek fan base are just all over him. But more so what I'm saying is that, they recognize that he's the best player in the East and that all the votes should go to him. Basically, this is what I'm saying. It's not like was it like Yao Ming got picked, was like the most picked ages ago and didn't even play one game or something. You know what I mean? So, he was definitely picked as a captain. He was definitely deservingly picked on his merits. I think I'll start off by focusing more on the East. As I mentioned, Kyrie Irving, deservingly picked. Obviously, there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of just news surrounding him pretty much the whole season. I was going to say as of late, but it's pretty much been the whole season. It's definitely been noted the Celtics struggles. We all had the expectations of them being basically a number 1 or number 2 seed in the East, but as it currently stands, in number 5, had a really, really good game against the Warriors. Obviously, they did lose, but I think it's definitely something to piggyback on and work on. Before that, they were on a 5-game winning streak. So, I think they definitely were turning a corner, and especially Curry himself. I think in the Golden State game, he got like 28 and 10 or something around there. Don't hold the stats to me like that, but definitely had a great performance. Just especially especially in recent games. But I think overall, if he did sort of took a macro view on it, averaging a career high in assists, averaging, basically 24 points per game. So standard Kyrie Irving stuff, and he will still remain sort of the best guard in the East as it stands. His partner in crime, you could say, is Kemba Walker, a very similar player to Kyrie, a very ball-dominant guard, score-first hub mentality, and obviously the Hornets, again, one of those, no man's land teams. I sort of pioneered the phrase. I don't know why I can't say my own phrase, but they're sort of a no man's land team that, what are they now? I think they're 9th. If just give me 1 second. They are coming 8th, so they are in the playoffs, but I think, that's probably where they are, around probably 7 to 10 area. Not really fighting for much, but Kemba, it's hard to deny sort of the type of season he's having. A career season, obviously a contract season, so he's definitely going to be putting his best foot forward for, this season, this season and at least the remainder for the season as well. Probably controversial in some regards because there are some other people that you could pick. Some that I would get to later when I sort of select my own All-Star reserves. But in the most part, I think no matter what, Kemba deserves to be an All-Star. And, I think, really it being a starter or reserve really doesn't matter at this point. When they're doing the Hall of Fame accolades and stuff, they don't say Kemba Walker, 2 All-Star appearances as a starter, 1 as a bench player. They don't do that. They just say an All-Star appearance. So, Kemba Walker definitely deserving. Had that monster game against the 76ers, where he dropped 60. The only player that dropped 60, actually not the only player, actually James Harden did drop 60. So one of 2 players, to drop 60 points this season. But just a great play, and probably didn't really just talk too much about him. As I sort of mentioned, Giannis, front runner for the MVP. There's not really much to talk about. This guy does everything on the court. Rebounding monster. No one can stop him in the paint. Being a bit more cheeky from the 3-point line, which is definitely going to be more terrifying for NBA opponents in the future. But like I mentioned, Giannis, everyone knows Giannis, so, that's pretty stock standard. And, rounding out the Eastern Conference starting 5, we got Kawhi Leonard. Probably not the most charismatic guy, but we know what Kawhi Leonard brings. He's averaging, I think, a career high in points, obviously. He's being more of a scorer. Defensively, probably still, if, a lot of people have Paul George as, front runner for the Defensive Player of the Year. But I think if you're going to pick between the two, 9 out of 10 times, most people are going to be picking Kawhi Leonard to be the best defender out of them. So, we know what we get from Kawhi. Emotionless, but just get all game, and let's just speaking, just sort of come through the ball. Oh God, Jesus, Jordan, what are you doing, mate? Jeez, maybe I'm still drunk from yesterday because I did get hammered. But yeah, like I was mentioning, who knows if Kawhi's even going to be playing that much. They've been resting him as of late. And I think it was his first All-Star appearance or something like that. He only played 2 minutes last year. Or not last year, 2 years ago when he started. He played like 10 minutes. So he's not really much one for the game. But, we'll probably see him play a little bit here and there. And heading to the West, again, pretty stock standard. I think everything is what people expected. With Steph Curry starting. What can we say about Steph Curry? I think he, with Kawhi, actually Kawhi, Giannis, and Harden are sort of the three main people in the running for the MVP. I think you definitely got to stick Steph Curry in there. It's pretty evident that the Warriors really need Steph Curry to win. They went through that massive losing patch. And basically, as soon as Steph Curry comes back, obviously, you had DeMarcus Cousins come back, and other people would get more healthier, like Draymond Green and stuff. But let's be honest, when Steph Curry came back, now they're just absolutely dicking down every opponent. Like, it's just destruction. No one can stop them. It's basically the book's been written. They've won the championship. So, that's sort of speaking on how great Steph Curry is, averaging 29 points per game, second in the league. Yeah, just a beast. The only one to average more points than him, obviously, is James Harden. The man dropped the 60-point triple-double. Is there really more that needs to be said? The man put 60-point triple-double. And I know, I don't know about the new listeners, but a lot of old listeners would know that I have a really tenuous relationship with James Harden. I like him, but, his game style's not appealing, and let's be honest, it's not really conducive to being successful in the playoffs. So I sort of say he's a choke in the playoffs, but it's undeniable stats. It's undeniable what he's doing this season. So definitely deserving an all-star starting spot. The front court, I guess, position, usually forwards and centers like they did back in the day, but just a front court now, and it's clear that getting rid of the center position in the All-Star selection sort of, changes everything, because now we see three basically small forwards starting in the front court for the Western Conference. We've got, obviously, LeBron James, as I mentioned, the captain, plays in LA, still probably the best player in the world, blah, 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 blah. It's stock standard stuff for LeBron James, let's be honest. With that, we have Kevin Durant, again, probably clear that he was always going to be a starter, deadly scorer. What you're going to get from him. Obviously, there was a lot of pressure, some sort of, scrutiny around him and how he was trying to, he was being a leader on the Warriors with Steph Curry out. So, there is some sort of, is it his best season? Probably not, but is it good enough to be an NBA All-Star starter? I think most definitely. And the other one as well, Paul George having, a monster season, a career season. You could say definitely sort of great to see, coming off that horrendous injury he had, with Team America, not the movie, the basketball team. It's good to see him come back and basically play at the level that a lot of people didn't even think he could even get back to. Some people didn't even have him in that superstar. I think he's really, really close to, you could even say the superstar, to be honest. Two-way play is probably at least the second best two-way player in the world. So if that doesn't condone superstar, I don't know what really is. But yeah, a lot of people didn't really think he could reach the superstar level again after that horrific injury. But, with hard work and determination, anything happened. Hashtag motivational Monday. But, yeah, just great on Paul George for doing what he's doing on both ends of the court. And really, really sort of, I guess, transforming the way that most people look at the Thunder. Obviously, they had that patch where they were losing a bunch of games, lost to the Lakers, lost to the Hawks and stuff, and I definitely went on a rant about that. I think it was actually last episode, so not really that long ago. But, it's undeniable what he's done for the whole season, especially with, with Russell Westbrook out at some points and stuff like that. So that sort of wraps it up. With, the All-Star starters, congratulations to all of them. Like I said, they're all deserving, even though I might have some differing opinions about who should be starting and who should be a reserve. I think nonetheless, all of them deserve to be starters, and it sort of shows, even though there was players like D Rose, Doncic, Wade, that were, if it was in the old system and it was just based on fan voting, they would get picked ahead of, probably Kemba, and picked ahead of like Paul George and stuff like that. And who was it? And Harden. I think it sort of maybe not shows, but I think it sort of indicates that perhaps the implementation of this new Zaza rule, you could say, has really aided in legitimizing the All-Stars, the premium crop of players, at least for the starters, in my opinion. So, excuse me, that might be throw up coming up from last night. But yeah, I think it is a good deserving crop. Good on you, boys. What did I write down? Who got snubbed? I don't think anyone got snubbed again. I think there is some differing opinions. In my honest viewpoint, I think Kemba shouldn't be starting. I did sort of, mention it earlier. I would prefer someone like Ben Simmons to be starting. I think what he's done for the 76ers is probably a greater impact and greater value than what Kemba Walker's really done. But we'll sort of get to Simmons anyway. And then on the other side, I think, there's definitely not a debate, but I think Anthony Davis that could have, sort of been put in the front court. It's sort of just playing with semantics at that point, so it doesn't really matter. But that sort of alludes to what I'm going to talk about next, which is the NBA All-Star reserves, and this is where it gets juicy. This is where it gets, sort of controversial and stuff like that, because like I said, the NBA All-Star starter, they're usually written in the stars. It's quite clear who they're going to be, and even though there is some discrepancies, generally everyone is of the same token who they are. But when it comes to reserves, people have basically a lot of different criteria. Is it winning that matters? Is it statistical numbers that matters? Is it fan appeal that matters? Is it is it how people and players view you matter? There's a lot of interacting and interlinking factors that really cultivate what should condone, or it's not cultivate, what condones someone being an All-Star reserve. So, I can say right now, one conference was a lot easier than the other. It's pretty clear what that one is, and the reason why it was easy is because really there's not a lot of All-Stars. Like, when I was writing down the shortlist for the Western Conference All-Stars, so many people, a lot of people that would probably be All-Stars in the East, but it's sort of how it works out, and that's probably, actually, I'll hold on to that, I'll probably address that later, but I'll start with my Eastern Conference All-Star reserves. As I mentioned from the top, not from the top, what as I mentioned before, Ben Simmons having a great season. I'm not just trying to be a dick riding Australian homer just because he's an Aussie boy. It will be a big thing for Australia. Really big thing when Ben Simmons gets announced as an All-Star, because he'll be the first Australian All-Star of all time, and it sort of is ushering in this great group and great young crop of Australian NBA players. Thon Maker, Jonah Bolden. We got even a great great high school stud in Josh Green coming up. So a lot of great Australian players, and this is sort of like a great milestone in Australian basketball when Ben Simmons becomes an All-Star. But Ben Simmons, points, rebounds, assists, does it all, steals. Obviously, I've harped and hated on him not mentally being able to have the balls to take a jump shot, but even him not even taking a jump shot has allowed him to be an All-Star. So it sort of shows how great Simmons is in all other facets of the game, and very deserving of being an All-Star. I actually should predicate on how I sort of picked up my All-Star reserves. The number one criteria, I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but I always think winning's very, very important. So I basically try to pick people that are in sort of playoff positions. But that being said, there is a lot of teams that, already have one All-Star, like, starting and stuff like that, or just teams that really don't deserve an All-Star, like, I'll just say it now, the Miami Heat. Sorry, Dwayne Wade, but you're not an All-Star. They don't have an All-Star representative for me. But, like I said, it's primarily sort of who, what teams are winning and are in the playoff picture, and then I sort of pick from there. And then once I feel comfortable with picking the people from that winning crop, then I sort of pick the best players from sort of the next crop. Maybe like the stand-up people, maybe look at the statistical information, maybe just look at how much of a buzz they're having in the NBA and stuff like that. So that's what I get to. But like I said, first and foremost, I usually sort of look at winning as the main factor in choosing my All-Star reserve. So that leads me to D'Angelo Russell, and geez, what a turnaround D'Angelo Russell has after getting traded from the Los Angeles Lakers by Magic Johnson for saying he doesn't have, basically just said you have no leadership, mate. Obviously having a comeback from the whole Nick Young incident. Just a lot of people sort of lost faith in D'Angelo Russell, and if people are saying if Soulja Boy's claiming the biggest comeback, mate, you gotta D'Angelo Russell's close to having one of the biggest comebacks of the year, because the man is playing very well, very, very well. And if I was gonna predict D'Angelo Russell being an All-Star, I probably wouldn't. I think I maybe mentioned that he was close, but I think it's definitely solidified as being an All-Star, and that's not only based on his performance, but how the Brooklyn Nets are playing as well. They're in the 6th position, and I'll sort of get it later into the podcast about the Brooklyn Nets. But man, they're improving. They are improving. But D'Angelo Russell, multiple 30-point games, always distributing around his teammates, and he hits big shots. This is not empty stats, you guys. He's hitting some big shots, some clutch shots, game winners. He's got ice in his veins. We've seen it before, but D'Angelo Russell, very deserving, and it's just great to see, man. Because the number 2 pick, all this scrutiny on him, all this pressure on him, and being able to go to a different environment, and it sort of proves, especially in the draft, that it's nature and nurture. It's very, nurture, the environment that you sort of go in and what team you go in is very indicative of how you're going to end up as a player. We saw that he didn't really thrive, especially being the rookie for Kobe Bryant, didn't really thrive in that environment. And then when the keys was handed to him for that second season, they sort of just didn't like what he really brought to the table. But D'Angelo Russell, man, you're doing well. Keep doing what you're doing, bro. Keep doing what you're doing. And I like his if no one sent it, his essential things on the GQ YouTube thing. The man likes dogs. I respect it. I respect him hard. So shout out to D'Lo, very deserving. And then after going down all the sort of teams in the Eastern Conference, I think deserved an All-Star. You sort of see that there is not really a lot of teams that deserve multiple All-Stars. The Celtics, I don't think, deserve multiple All-Stars. As I mentioned, the Heat didn't deserve any All-Stars. So from there, I had to sort of dig deeper in the Eastern Conference ladder, and that sort of leads me to Bradley Beal for the Washington Wizards. Not 2 games back from the from the 8th seed, so not too far behind. And basically, ever since John Wall fell off, not only Bradley Beal but the Washington Wizards franchise has really just gotten better, which I guess maybe is more about John Wall than it really is about Bradley Beal. But Bradley Beal playing great, being sort of the more primary ball handler, sort of playing that more James Harden role where he's sort of conducting the offense. He's going to get his points, but we always know he was always going to get his points. I think he's averaging over 20. I think he's averaging like 28 or something ridiculous. Ever since John Wall came out, and now he's distributing even more. Obviously, with a higher usage rate, that's probably gonna happen anyway. But Bradley Beal, the stats are hard to deny him. He's probably one of the best shooting guards in the world, and who knows how much longer he's gonna be in the Washington Wizards. I'll just say that. And again, a player playing for a pretty dud team actually has the same record as the Washington Wizards at 21-27. So again, only 2 games off from being the 8th seed is the Detroit Pistons. And their representative is Luke Kennard. No, I'm kidding, not Luke Kennard. Obviously not Luke Kennard. Definitely not Luke Kennard. Nowhere near Luke Kennard. It is Blake Griffin. The man's putting up numbers, 20, I think it's like 25, 8 and 5, something like, again, not much of a stat man, so don't quote me on that. I'm just chucking numbers and hoping they stick to the wall. But it sounds right, doesn't it? 25, 8 and 5, something around there. Blake Griffin playing really well on a franchise that is underachieving, especially when, quote unquote, they have two All-Stars in Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. Blake Griffin sort of, he's been putting in his numbers and sort of turned around the perception of him that everyone had on the Clippers. Now he's sort of become another valuable person that a lot of teams are sort of being like, maybe we could sort of take him on. Maybe he would be a good player to have on our team, So, Blake Griffin, mate, thumbs up. Good on you. And then now you go sort of deeper in the Eastern Conference, and I go to the team that is 11th. And that's the Orlando Magic. And it's no surprise who the All-Star I'm picking there is, and that's Nikola Vucevic. Putting up monster numbers. Double-double, average 20 and 10, couple assists, some blocks, steals, just add that all into the mixture that is Nikola Vucevic. A lot of people say it's empty numbers, and I definitely tend to agree. They're definitely empty numbers, because if you're putting that type of monster stats, you would think that would lead to more wins for your team, but it seems it doesn't. Obviously, you can't put all the blame on Nikola Vucevic, because it's only one player, and it's 4 other players on the court with him on his team that can contribute. So it's definitely not just his fault, but there needs to be something said for just the numbers he's putting up. But like I said, Nikola Vucevic, good on you, mate. You're in. I'll take that for what you're worth, mate. I picked you. And after looking down, there's teams like the Hawks, the Bulls, the Knicks, the Cavaliers. Just teams that I don't really think are deserving of an All-Star, let's just be honest. When you're if you're that low, and it's not like the Western Conference where it's really just a clusterfuck of teams within that sort of playoff picture, that it's just because there's so many teams that someone has to be 14th, but they're like with 20 wins or something. It's not like that. Like, all these other teams below the Magic are just trash. Like 15 wins for the Hawks, 11 wins for the Bulls, 10 wins for the Knicks, 9 for the Cavs. It's just all trash teams. So I don't think you can't be deserving of an All-Star, no matter how highlight reel your players are and stuff like that. So I sort of have to loop all the way back around and go to the Milwaukee Bucks. And if you're the number one team, and they are, I guess, technically tied for the number one team, you could say. Well, not really technically tied, not technically tied, but you sort of catch the drift from saying, they are number one, and generally, it's usually a rule of thumb that if you're the number one team, you should be deserving of more than one All-Star. And we saw that, with the Atlanta Hawks back in the day when Kyle Korver and Jeff Teague got picked. It just happens all the time, the multiple All-Star type thing. So, in my opinion, I think that sort of is relevant to the pick that I've chosen. That is Chris Middleton. It's weird, though, because when you look at Chris Middleton, you think he's probably contributing at a greater level than he really is. But he's having a worse season than he was last year. Like, last year, he was playing very, very well. And, I don't know if that's because Giannis has improved, so just naturally Chris Middleton's overall role is going to reduce. But I think he is the second best player on the team. You could go between him and Eric Bledsoe. I'm more leaning to Chris Middleton because he spreads the floor, shoots threes, and especially when you have Giannis, whose usage rate is very high. You need people to spread the floor, and for a while, Chris Middleton was having an insane percentage from three. So I think Chris Middleton's not really deserving to be picked. I think he's just, with what's being offered in the Eastern Conference, he has to be picked. So he's being picked. Yeah. Good on you, Chris Middleton. Just one team that I really haven't, addressed, and one player, I guess, that's sort of the elephant in the room that I haven't addressed, and that's the Indiana Pacers. They're third. They have 32 wins. they're third in the Eastern Conference. They're top 14. They're gonna have they could have home court advantage for the playoffs, but gee, it really just sucks to say. Victor Oladipo, he was probably a shoe-in for the All-Star game. If anything, I would even think that he's probably ahead of Simmons and more deserving to be an All-Star starter. But obviously he had that horrific leg injury that might put him out for not only this season, but all of next season as well, which is definitely disappointing for not only the Pacers and not only for Victor Oladipo, but I think just for the NBA itself, because Victor Oladipo is one of those characters, man. He's just, everyone loves him. He sings. He did the whole Black Panther thing for the dunk contest. Everyone just loves Victor Oladipo, and it's just unfortunate that it's sort of his season's ended this way. But if you can take anything from what Paul George has done, and how he's been able to bounce back, hopefully Victor Oladipo can take that as inspiration. Ironically, an ex-Pacers player as well, take that as inspiration and try and work back to the All-Star level that we know he can be, because he's done it. So, Victor Oladipo, I think if I was the coaches, I would pick him, knowing that obviously he can't play, but it'll be I think you need to pick him so that at least he gets the acknowledgement of being an All-Star. We know if you get picked to be an All-Star, you're an All-Star, even if you can't play. It will forever be on your resume, if you're trying to be a Hall of Famer, stuff like that. So it'll just be unfortunate that Oladipo just getting an injury at an untimely moment is going to miss out on the All-Star game, or on an All-Star nod, I guess you could say. So I would pick him, especially as a representative for the Pacers, because a top 3 team, you need to have an All-Star person, to be represented at least. So I have him, and obviously he's not going to play, so you have to go and pick someone else. And again, sort of following on the same trajectory as why I picked Chris Middleton, I picked Kyle Lowry, and the Bucks one game back from the Raptors one game back from the Bucks. Again, like I said, if you're 1 or 2 seed, I think you are generally deserving of having 2 All-Stars. And again, in the East, there is not a lot of All-Star caliber players, in my opinion. So I think Lowry, being a former All-Star, obviously not playing at the level he's been playing in the past, especially when he used to play with DeRozan and stuff, I think he's having a bit of trouble actually adjusting to playing with Kawhi Leonard, because he's more of a different player than DeMar DeRozan. But I think nonetheless, there's a reason why the Raptors remain successful when Kawhi Leonard's not playing. There's a reason for that. Obviously they are a bit deeper. They got more talent. Pascal Siakam's improved. Serge Ibaka, even at his age, has improved. So there is a lot of actual reasons why they've improved, besides just Kyle Lowry himself, especially when Kawhi's not playing. But I think Kyle Lowry is sort of the main focal point of the offense and even the defense in some regards to when Kawhi Leonard is not playing. And to sustain this level of success for the Raptors, when your MVP caliber player is not playing and Lowry can increase the level of his game to an all-star level when he's not playing, and then on top of that can still sort of play effectively in some degree, maybe not statistically as what's being shown, but he can still be a valuable contributor when playing on the Raptors full strength team as well. So I think very deserving. You could say maybe Pascal Siakam, but I think he's 1 year away from being 1 year away type thing. He'll get there. He'll definitely get there in the future, but maybe just not now. So yeah, that sort of rounded off for the Eastern Conference All-Stars. Again, I'll sort of repeat it. I had Benjamin Simmons, D'Angelo Russell, Bradley Beal, Blake Griffin, Nikola Vucevic, Victor Oladipo, who gets subbed out for Kyle Lowry, and then lastly Chris Middleton as well. Some notable snubs. A lot of people have probably gone like, there's one player in the Eastern Conference that's an all-star level of talent, and I definitely think he is an all-star. And he might be deserving. He probably will get picked. Maybe he will get picked by the coaches. But in my opinion, I wouldn't let him be an all-star this year for a myriad of reasons, and that is the person. Gee, I really fucked up that intro. And that person is Jimmy McBuckets Butler. Jimmy Butler. he is an all-star level talent. He is a dog. He is sort of the main, you could say sort of the leader of the 76ers. He hits the clutch shots. They rely on him down the stretch to not only play and make, but to score. So yeah, you could say he is deserving, but why is he not deserving Jordan this year? 1, he's a dick. 2, he's an arsehole. And 3, he's a prick. That's basically all it is. That's all it is. The stats would indicate that he's an all-star. I guess technically you could say that Philadelphia is a team that doesn't deserve 3 all-stars. Like, if you're coming fourth, you don't deserve 3 all-stars. You know what I'm saying? You sort of, if the Bucks only get 2 and the Raptors get 2, and then the Pacers, excluding Victor Oladipo, get none, and then the 76ers get 3, is it really deserving that they get 3? I don't really think so. But I think it's more the reason why Jimmy Butler's not going to get picked. It's because it's just excuse my American and UK fans, but us Aussies would just describe him as a fucking cunt. It's just a straight up cunt. He basically just Titanicked the Minnesota Timberwolves season for a month. Then he moves to the Philadelphia 76ers, sort of blends in, and then has a fight with the coach, Brett Brown. Really, dude? Really? Your success, like, the team's playing well, and you still have the nerve to say that, you're not liking the team. And again, players should voice their opinions, especially, if I was a coach, I would like the players to voice their opinion. I would want them to talk about, perhaps some changes, because, they are the ones executing it. And if they don't feel comfortable playing, then, the team's not going to be successful. But Jimmy Butler's sandbagged the team, essentially fired one coach, and basically shut on another coach. And if you forgot who chooses the NBA All-Star reserves, it's the assistant coaches. So if this guy's just maliciously taking out one coach and then just trying to demean another coach, are the assistant coaches going to be like, you know what, we're going to ride for Jimmy Butler because he's a good player? Or they're going to ride for their mans? Their coaching mans. Of course they're going to ride for their mans. So that's why Jimmy Butler's not going to get picked. I wouldn't pick him anyway because he's a bit of a dick, and plus 76ers don't deserve 3 All-Stars, but the assistant coaches are not going to pick him because they try to ruin their man. That's basically what I'm saying. What else in regards to the Eastern Conference All-Stars? You could maybe say Zach LaVine might have been deserving. He definitely has cooled off as of late, but, your team's only won 11 games. You're not really an All-Star, right? You're not really an All-Star. Another comment I did want to make as well, the Celtics at 5th. Let's be honest, as I mentioned, they are underachieving. A lot of teams would expect them, a lot of people would expect them to be further up, and as a result, you would think that they would have more All-Stars. Horford, an All-Star in the past. I don't think he's deserving of an All-Star appearance. Gordon Hayward, former All-Star. He's still trying to get back to his form. He did, have a severe leg breaks, or ankle break, or whatever you want to call it. So it's probably going to take him some time as well anyway. But I think the one person that we all thought that was going to take that next step and that next leap to be an All-Star was Jason Tatum. And it is a bit disappointing to see Jason Tatum not take that next leap. Is it because there might be sort of more players on the team that demand more of the ball? Of course, it's probably another factor. It's because he trained with Kobe Bryant and Kobe Bryant just told him to do pull-up jumpers. Again, that could be another factor, but overall, you'd think that he would take that next step, especially what he did in the playoffs and sort of how he presented himself to the NBA world. It's like, this is the next dude. This is the next dude. Even, let's be honest, a lot of us would have thought that if an Anthony Davis trade was possible for the Celtics, that there would be really just one person that wasn't going to be touched, and that was Jason Tatum. And obviously Jason Tatum himself said that he would trade himself for Anthony Davis. But, before the season started, did Jason Tatum look like I wouldn't say a generational player, but, definitely progressing towards superstar level talent. And I think he still probably would reach at least a superstar level talent. But this is definitely a little, speed bump in the road to that. So, it's unfortunate that he's not an All-Star, but, he'll definitely get his time. He'll get his time. So, and that sort of wraps up the Eastern Conference NBA All-Star reserves. which leads to the NBA All-Star reserves in the Western Conference. And as I move my paper over and I see a bunch of names that I put down for the NBA Western Conference NBA All-Star reserves, I start with some of the obvious. And I think the most obvious is Nikola Jokic, the Joker. The man put up one of the most historic triple-doubles ever. This guy had a triple-double where he was perfect from the field. This guy is a center and he gets triple-doubles. He could be, who knows, in a couple seasons, he could be he could be the first front court player ever to average a triple-double. He's averaging 20, 10, and 8, or 20, 10, and 8 or something like that. He's the centerpiece of a team that's coming second in the Western Conference and a loaded Western Conference, and not only just second, but second quite comfortably to the point where they're nearly first. And they were first at one stage before the Warriors became the Warriors. But Nikola Jokic is the reason why the Nuggets are the Nuggets, putting up monster stats, monster numbers, and really sort of has brought a style of play in a game in which a lot of people thought we were moving away from. People thought we were moving away from the big man, and then Jokic says, F you, middle finger to the sky, I'm a big man, I'm going to play like a big man, yet also be able to shoot the three and distribute the ball. So Nikola Jokic definitely deserving. He could even been deserving to be a starter in all honesty. Let's just be honest. If it was the old system where it was two guards, two forwards, and one center, I think it would have been obvious that Nikola Jokic would have been the center or the starting center for the NBA Western Conference. But that's neither here nor there. Jokic resume speaks for itself. Another short thing, which some people would have the audacity to argue that it's not a short thing, is Russell Westbrook basically averaging 22, 11, and 11, something around there. Obviously, no one's really talking about him averaging a triple-double again, because he's done it again. It's sort of old news. Boy who cried wolf. We're sort of we get it, mate. You can average a triple-double, which definitely we shouldn't be scoffing at, because no one's ever done it like this. This man plays hard, he's a dog, and he's the reason why the Thunder are coming third. I did mention Paul George, he's having an outstanding season, but let's just not forget who's the best player on the team and who's the dog, and that's Russell Westbrook. And I know he's shooting a career low in free throws, having one of his worst three-point shooting seasons, one of his worst field goal seasons, and his efficiency is just terrible. Terrible. In that Lakers game, he went 7 for 30? Really? 7 for 30? But that man averaged a triple-double. He's putting out assists like it's nothing. And there's a reason why they're number 3 in the West. In the loaded West. So, definitely deserving of being an all-star starter. Oh, no, an all-star reserve. Another shoo-in, I think, is Dame Lillard. He used to never be a shoo-in. He used to be actually, he was a shoo-in. Let's be honest. He was a shoo-in to always be snubbed. He was a constant snub. The man, scoring savant, always averaged around 25 points per game. And I think the biggest knock on him was sort of, I wouldn't say his leadership per se, but it's more so why his teams weren't being as successful as it is. And right now, no one can question that. The number 4 in the West, only half a game back from the Thunder, so easily could be a top 3 team. And Dame Lillard's really the engine that's doing it, and he's not doing it in the usual way that he does. We all know he can score, but he's being more of a playmaker, distributor, someone that shares the ball around. CJ, have your shot. Seth, have your shot. Why do you think Yusuf Nurkic has improved so much? I think it's all because Dame has not only matured, but understood that he needs to, I wouldn't say sacrifice his shots, but more so making more basketball savvy moves, because I think them getting swept in the playoffs by the Pelicans really sort of put the mirror to their face. I know, even I was saying that maybe they should just trade the core and rebuild, but I think it's quite clear that what they have is good. They might need to add some few pieces, cough Melo, but I think Dame sort of not changing his game entirely, but sort of adding, I guess, a few more facets to it has enabled the Trailblazers to be a top 4 team. So Dame definitely deserving. And then we go down the list, and a lot of people might not have him in the All-Star team. A lot of people might have another player from his team in the All-Star team. But again, I prefaced it when I was creating my criteria that winning is very much the most important reason or most important factor in who I choose as an All-Star. And for that reason, I picked LaMarcus Aldridge. Not the sexiest pick, not really a superstar, but by any means, he's definitely a star player. But I think you just have to pick him. You have to pick him. He's just a good player. He's a good player, and I think he's the reason why the San Antonio Spurs are coming 6th. A lot of people were sort of questionable if they were going to be a playoff team, and it's sort of become apparent that it looks like they may be a playoff team. Obviously, either they're very loaded West, and basically they're 1 game, basically 1 to 2 games out of being like from the playoffs. So obviously it is very close, but as it stands right now, as I'm recording this podcast, in Australian time, to the 22nd of January 2019, LaMarcus Aldridge is an all-star to me. He carries the team basically, and I think, I guess I should mention him anyway right now. A lot of people might say, why is, maybe DeMar DeRozan should get picked. The reason I pick Aldridge, because DeMar DeRozan can put up his numbers and his stats, and the Spurs could still lose. But when Aldridge puts up his numbers and his stats, his numbers have such a vast influence in the game that generally the Spurs win. And Aldridge automatically, from the mid-range, one of the rare people that sort of like to bang and play in the post type player. And again, not the sexiest pick, and when we get to when we get to sort of drafting these players, Aldridge is, let's be honest, probably going to be the last one picked. I think he was the last one picked last year if rumors served correctly, but like I said, deserving of being an All-Star. Dropped a monster 50-point game, so if that doesn't tickle your fancy, I don't know what else for with Aldridge. As I mentioned, before, when I was discussing the Eastern Conference teams, especially the number 1 and number 2 seeds, I generally think that they should have multiple All-Stars, and I know with the Warriors, they already have Curry and Durant, but Clay definitely is deserving of being an All-Star. Again, one of those, this whole list could very chop and change between different people and different perspectives. Like, some people don't think Clay is deserving, but the man dropped 44 points on the Lakers with 10 straight threes. This guy's had a 50-point game in 3 quarters. 40-point game in 3 quarters. This guy is a stud. And I know he had a slow start to the season. Couldn't shoot a 3 for his life on his life if it depended on it. But, it's come clear. He's again creeping his 3-point percentage up to the 40s, which, is ridiculous as per what's standard for Clay. And it's, maybe it is sort of getting, again, we know what we're going to get from Clay. We know what we're going to get from Clay. And maybe it's like, maybe you want something different. But the team's number 1. They're 1.5 games ahead of the Nuggets. And Clay's very much a critical piece of the team. It's just clear. And because of that, I think he is deserving of an All-Star nod. So, yeah. Good on you, Clay. This is where it sort of gets contentious. This is where it sort of gets tricky. Again, I like to award winning. You even like to award accolades, You feel like if someone's the player of the month for a conference, you think that they should be an All-Star. Don't you? You think they should be an All-Star. And because of that, I have Tobias Harris as an All-Star reserve for the Western Conference team. A lot of people might not like that. Again, not a sexy pick. He's not a sexy pick. But again, I reward winning. And the Clippers are in the playoffs as it stands on the 27th of January 2019. They are the number 8 seed. He was the Western Conference Player of the Month at one point this season. Let's not forget about that. The guy's averaging over 20 points per game. He's averaging a great amount in rebounding. I think career high in rebounding. He's the centerpiece of the team. And again, I can't reiterate, he's not sexy. Even physically, I wouldn't really rate him as sexy. But his game is his game. He contributes greatly to the team. And he deserves to be an all-star. He deserves. To me, he deserves to be an all-star. You can argue all you want. You can say, he's not exciting. You can say the Clippers are not really, the Clippers are not that far deep in the players for you to condone an automatic sport for Clippers all-star. Yes, you can say all that, but numbers don't lie. People do. And Tobias Harris deserves to be an all-star, and that's where I'm going to sort of leave it. And again, I don't know why I keep saying it again. I think that's probably something I got to stop saying in my vocabulary. But to round off the Western Conference All-Stars, to round it off, notable person that hasn't been said, probably quite clear could even be an NBA All-Star starter, and that is Anthony Davis. And he's sort of the one player who outliers everything. You have to pick him no matter what. The guy's putting up crazy numbers, like 29, he's like averaging 28 points per game, something around there. Obviously leading the league in blocks. He's really doing everything, and obviously it's quite clear when he's not playing, the Pelicans suck ass, and not in a good way. Like not in an eat ass, eat your groceries, Jenny Aiko type of way. They just suck. They're terrible. They can't do anything. And yes, Jahlil Okafor. People know that if they've listened to the 23 Shots of JD podcast from the beginning, I've loved Jahlil Okafor. Putting up monster numbers. Even blocks. The guy got 5 blocks. 5 blocks. Or 6 blocks one game. And then 4 blocks another game. But Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, 29, I think 12 or 13 blocks, a career high in assist. And that's putting up historic numbers that we haven't seen in decades. Decades. And I know his team's coming 13th. I know his team's 5 wins from the playoffs. I know he might not even be with the Pelicans by the time this podcast comes out. Who knows what's going to happen with Anthony Davis. But nonetheless, 100% an all-star, and that's not debatable. If anything, I would even say an all-star starter. That's how much of an all-star this guy is. Superstar. Beyond superstar. The Brow, AD, is an all-star. So I'll repeat my NBA Western Conference all-stars again. I have Nikola Jokic, Russell Westbrook, Damian Lillard, LaMarcus Aldridge, Klay Thompson, Tobias Harris, and Anthony Davis. And I know generally, I didn't really even think about it when I was making the list, but generally when they do the All-Star, the assistant coaches sort of pick 2 guards, 3 forwards, and 2 wild cards. There's been reports that Adam Silver said just disregard that and pick the 7 best players, which I guess is probably better that way. But when I sort of look at it, I do sort of have 2 forwards, 3 forwards for the West. I guess you can sort of Tobias Harris is a front court player as well. So I got 4 front court players for the West, and I've got, if you count Middleton as a small forward, I've got 3 for the East. So sort of fell in line with the general way that they do it. So, yeah. Those are my all-star reserves. I guess I should address a lot, and I mean a lot, of the notable snubs from the NBA all-star reserves for the Western Conference. I have Steven Adams. I think he's been playing fantastic, having a career season. Again, his stats probably won't reflect it. He's one of those guys that sort of the stats don't tell the true story of how this man plays, but he's really much the engine that ticks for the Oklahoma Thunder. I know I said Russell Westbrook is the Don, but what Adams does, all the dirty work, one of the best offensive rebounders in the game, pick and roll finisher, on point, alley-oop, easy, money, saves Mason Plumlee from breaking his neck. No one wants to fight him, looks like Aquaman looking nice, but
Steven Adams, I think, is definitely someone that could easily been picked. You could even pick him ahead of Aldridge if you didn't like Aldridge, really. Like, I think he's sort of that close, really, with Adams. Plus, it would be just good for a Kiwi to come up, a Kiwi and an Aussie to be in the NBA All-Star game. That would be legendary. The first Australian and the first Kiwi. And imagine on the same team. That trans-Tasman, not rivalry, that trans-Tasman chemistry. That would be great. And I think maybe that's just a homer for an Aussie guy wanting to see the younger brother, as we like to say in Australia, to New Zealand, the young blood to be an NBA All-Star. Funny enough, a notable selection or notable team that I didn't really mention when discussing the Western Conference All-Star reserves was the Utah Jazz, and they are 7th. They are actually ahead of the Clippers, so you could even argue that maybe they should, one of those two players that I'm going to mention should take Tobias Harris' spot, but Tobias Harris was Western Conference Player of the Month. You can't just diss a man like that. So, due to that, I have Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert missing. Donovan Mitchell definitely on the cusp, but I think it's just because his game is very one-dimensional at the moment. He's just scoring the ball, doesn't rebound much, doesn't assist. Sort of defense here and there, but I think he's really just primarily focusing on scoring. And if we're going to just pick people based on scoring, I think there's a lot of people ahead of him. Donovan Mitchell, though, definitely should be noted. When I talked about Jason Tatum taking that next step, I think Donovan Mitchell is sort of close to how many times I want to say close, is near to taking that next step. He might be on the cusp of it, but I think he sort of stayed relatively stagnant, at least for the beginning of the season, ramping it up more in January. But I think, again, he's a young cat. He's going to have a lot of other opportunities to make the All-Star team. So that's why I sort of give Tobias Harris a nod over Donovan Mitchell. And with Rudy Gobert, I think there is a definite conversation that he could get picked ahead of LaMarcus Aldridge just because what he provides defensively. The guy just, no one wants to go in the paint when start a step, Jordan. When this man is defending, like, he just secures the paint like no one can in the NBA. And he scores as well. Again, he averages a double-double. I think it's like 15 and 13. Obviously, he's gonna be averaging some blocks as well. So there is a great argument for LaMarcus Aldridge, but the Spurs are ahead of the Jazz, and LaMarcus Aldridge dropped 50 in one game. So that's sort of why I have LaMarcus there. Again, probably both picks aren't that sexy. If you're going to go in sexiness, maybe Donovan Mitchell. The man's pretty sexy, but the All-Star reserves are not based on sexiness. So it's just what it is. And probably a big person that didn't get picked, and one that people would definitely have picked, probably has like a certain, but I don't have him picked because the team's shit. And that is Karl-Anthony Towns, Kitty Cat, as I like to call him. I don't think, his stats again. There's a lot of players that have these, have stats that can back up them being an all-star. But again, as I preface this from the beginning of picking these reserves, I said winning takes precedence. And your team sucks, and Karl-Anthony Towns, Mr. Towns, Anthony Towns. I don't know how you want to pronounce your last name. If it's hyphen, if I say Anthony Towns, or if you just say Towns. It's really disrespectful because I think it is Carl and an Anthony Towns. So for people to just say Towns, you're actually disrespecting either the mom or dad. I don't know which one is the Towns, but one of these parents are getting disrespected when commentators and analysts just say Towns. You gotta say Anthony Towns or say Cat. Include the whole family. Don't diss this man's family like that. The Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't get picked. Your team sucks, but you have empty stats. Sort of like Vucevic. You're really the Vucevic of the West, meaning that if you're in the East, mate, you'll be definite All-Star. You'll probably be like starting in the All-Star game, possibly, potentially. But your team's trash, so you're not in. You getting in. You get in another time, Cat. Just not this year. Another person which I was so close to putting in just because I love this man. Talks about sexy. I wouldn't say like he's not really that sexy. His mom's sexy. I'm not trying to do you dirty like that, but let's call a spade a spade. Your mom's sexy. And that's Luka. I was just thinking about his mom for a second. And that's Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic deserves to be an NBA All-Star. Why should he deserve to be an NBA All-Star? The man's averaging historic numbers, not only for a rookie, but someone his age. Ridiculous. He's having a ridiculous season, and if the Mavericks were sort of closer to the playoff picture, even like around, they're coming 12th, they were like 9 or 10. I probably would have slid him in there, and who knows? He might get in. Maybe the assistant coaches might put him in because, assistant coaches definitely have a different perspective of someone like me or analysts and stuff like or fans and things like that. They're probably looking at who do we game plan for this team? Who's the most important player that we need to focus on? They're probably not looking at stats or stardom or standings. They're probably like, who's the player that we fear the most when we're game playing and stuff. And maybe that's Luka Doncic because the man's the man for, the Mavericks. He is the Don. He's 19 years old and he's the Don. The man got, he's the second youngest to have a triple-double. Recently just had a 32, 8, and 8 game. Just can't deny what this guy does. He's a stud. I'll just rattle off a couple more. Devin Booker. People love Devin Booker. He was pretty high in the player voting. But your team's trash. 11 wins. No, your team's trash. You can't be an all-star if your team's trash. Maybe empty stats. Ooh, conspiracy. Another player that's sort of like Donovan Mitchell that's really on the cusp of making it. It's really just unfortunate that the guard depth is so deep. In the West, because he could be pretty close to an all-star nod, really. And now that's De'Aaron Fox. The Kings are coming 10th at the moment. 2 games out of the playoffs. Who knows if they were in the playoffs? Maybe he would have got a nod. Playing fantastic. Again, he's the engine that makes Sacramento run. Having a fantastic season, points, assists wise, he really just does everything defensively. Very sound. So De'Aaron Fox as well. As I mentioned before, I always feel like the top 2 or even the top 3 teams deserve multiple All-Stars. And the Warriors, I think, they already have multiple All-Stars. I think they'll add with Clay. And the Thunder will have multiple All-Stars with Ross and even potentially Steven Adams. But one team that doesn't get multiple All-Stars is the Denver Nuggets. And if they were going to have multiple All-Stars, I think Jamal Murray is in the running. He's had fantastic games. Obviously gets on a lot of players' nerves, a bit chippy, in his trash talking and stuff like that. If you mention Jamal Murray's name right now, people will probably just come with he got dropped by James Harden pretty much. So probably not the most ideal time to mention his name or to at least mention his name for the All-Star nod, but definitely been playing well, very much improved, and you will definitely see him become an All-Star later in his career, if not in the near future. I sort of mentioned it before, DeMar DeRozan as well, and I think if he wasn't injured, I think he would be an All-Star, and that's Clint Capella. I think he would definitely be ahead of Aldridge or Tobias Harris. I guess those are probably my 2 wildcard spots. Capella, the guy does everything for the team, rebounding, scoring. He scored, pick and roll defensively. He really is the anchor for the Rockets and allows the Rockets to be the Rockets. So, unfortunately he's injured, and not only injured for a little bit, for a while. So hopefully he comes back healthy and better than ever, and it just sucks that maybe just timing-wise he's not able to be an All-Star. So that's unfortunate, but yeah, that sort of wraps up the Western Conference All-Star reserves. I'll go through it. I'll give a little bit of a recap. So my Eastern Conference All-Star reserves are Benjamin Simmons, D'Angelo Russell, Bradley Beal, Blake Griffin, Nikola Vucevic, Victor Oladipo, Chris Middleton, and Kyle Lowry. Obviously, Oladipo is going to get X'd out because he's injured, but I think he definitely deserves to be acknowledged as an All-Star. And in the Western Conference, I have Nikola Jokic, excuse me, Russell Westbrook, Damian Lillard, LaMarcus Aldridge, Klay Thompson, Tobias Harris, and Anthony Davis, plus a lot of honorable mentions. So that sort of wraps up with the All-Star reserves. The podcast's going pretty. It's probably the longest podcast I've done in a while. I can't believe you guys have. What are the odds that you guys are still listening? If you're still listening, actually email me, DM me, comment on YouTube or whatever. Comment Dettol, like the hand sanitizer. Comment Dettol, and I'll know if you guys are riding or dying with me right now. Because it's been a long podcast, but there is some stuff that I did want to mention as well. I'll probably try and be quick so it's not too long of a podcast. Sort of the general view of the All-Star, what I think of it, great, cool. I think it sort of became clear how sort of different fans view All-Stars and players and coaches. I think, or players and media, sorry, because, you know, we saw, as I mentioned, D Rose, Dwayne Wade, Luka Doncic, players like that, you know, in the old system would be an All-Star, which, you know, if we're going to be perfectly honest, maybe that's the way it should always be. I think, you know, we always say that the NBA All-Star weekend is for the fans, and if the fans don't get the majority of the vote, then is it really for the fans, or is it really just for the NBA trying to put out the best talent? And, you know, there is probably arguments for both, but if it's for the fans, then maybe the fans should have full autonomy of who they can pick from 1 to 12. How about that? That might be something interesting as well. But yeah, you know, that's going to be, you know, see what happens there. I don't know how the All-Star draft is going to roll. I don't know if they're actually going to be drafting live. There's still so much conjecture about it. I know they mentioned it like probably way earlier in early before the season started about, you know, how it's going to be televised, but no one really knows how it's going to be televised. Is it going to be like an actual draft order? Because the Lakers, I think, are playing the Celtics when they're going to do the draft, so I don't know how that's going to really work. Yeah, it's going to be a bit interesting to see. I think what the more sort of juicy part about the whole All-Star draft is all the different storylines that are in it. I saw like the NBA Jump or some program, some NBA program talk about, oh, you should pick this player to try and recruit them for your team. No NBA All-Star draft is going to dictate what team player they're going to go to. If LeBron James drafts Kyrie Irving, they're not going to be like, oh my god, Kyrie Irving's going to go to the Lakers, it's a sign. No, that's not what it's going to mean. That's definitely not what it's going to mean. So let's just not be dumb. That was just dumb. That was a dumb segment that I saw. It's just, that's not going to happen. And then another interesting storyline with Giannis. Giannis actually came out and said that he wants to pick Russ, Ed, and Embiid on his team at the same time, which would be absolutely fantastic because he said, I'm a lover, not a fighter. Coming from the guy that wanted to punch Mario Hezonja in the nuts, I don't know how accurate that statement is or how truthful that statement is. Being a lover or fighter, Giannis, I don't know if you're telling your lies, mate, Mr. Pinocchio, see your nose grow type thing, but would be interesting to see Russ and Embiid. Maybe they could be like a Michael Jordan freeze out. Who knows? Like, if Russ is on the court, maybe just freezes out Embiid, like refuses to pass to Embiid. That could be a thing. Still, all of Embiid's rebounds, doesn't pass on the ball. That could be a thing. That's definitely one storyline to look to. But yeah, that's sort of just it for the All-Star segment, I guess. You know, it did run a bit longer than I expected, but there is a lot to address. There is a lot to address. It is one of my favorite weekends, and hopefully I'm not working because I do want to watch it in full. I guess it's sort of more of a somber moment now. As I talked about again, Victor Oladipo having that catastrophic leg injury. You just don't want to see that to a player like him. Again, as I mentioned, likable. Everyone likes him. His game's very entertaining to watch. And he definitely has an infectious, not only personality, but just winning mentality. And that's, again, resonated within the Indiana Pacers franchise. And that's why they're coming third. There is a reason why they're coming third. You know, obviously coaching and the other players in the team and stuff. But Victor Oladipo is the main focal point of why this team is in the position that it is. And it just sucks that this guy is looking at a long time on the sidelines. Like, Porzingis length. Paul George's length, you know, this guy, he's going to be out for a long time, and hopefully he can come back, as I mentioned, to the level that he was in the past. But you know, that's going to be coming with some hard sweat and tears, and it sort of puts the Indiana Pacers in a very peculiar position because, you know, they are third, and I think at this point they're on 32 wins. You know, they're sort of way too far to really quote unquote tank and try and get a decent draft pick? I think, do they cut their losses and try and, do nothing with the team before the trade deadline and just keep it what it is and hope, like, look, they're 9 wins ahead of 8th spot. So they do have a nice buffer to try and, still compete for the playoffs, maybe get like a 6th or 7th seed, one and done, get out of the playoffs, and then try and revamp for next year. Or do they try and make some moves? Obviously, there was rumors with Mike Conley going to the Pacers. I think he's from Indiana, so it'd be sort of going back home. There was a lot of rumors surrounding that. But also the more him pairing with Victor Oladipo. But now, again, with Victor Oladipo not only being out for this year, but most likely all of next year, it sort of, again, puts him in a peculiar position. Miles Turner's been re-signed and stuff like that. So, he's sort of going to be there for a while. What do you do with Sabonis? Bogdan, Thaddeus Young. You got a lot of pieces that you got to sort of think about. Definitely got to think about, and that's it's gonna be interesting to see what the Pacers not only do for the remainder of this season, but definitely next season as well, to see what they're gonna try and push forward. And I guess I'll end the podcast on arguably the greatest player of all time, Mitch Creek. Why do I say it's the greatest player of all time? Not only because he's Australian, shout out to the Aussie as well, but because this man is averaging the best per 48 minutes, I think, of all time. I think he's averaging 1,048 points per 48 minutes. And why is that? Because he got subbed in to shoot a free throw. So in technicality, he was there for 1 second, and he got 1 point. And if you do the math, that's 1,048 points. So congratulations. Congratulations, Mitch Creek. In all seriousness, I know I'm sort of clowning, but it's great to see another Aussie in the NBA. And as I mentioned with, Ben Simmons, and I guess it sort of ties in with sort of this whole celebration of Australia, with Australia Day being yesterday, and absolutely getting pissed drunk and stuff like that. It's great to see Mitch Creek, not only another Aussie, but a guy that came through the system in the domestic league in Australia, in the NBL. And, he sort of adds to sort of adding credentials and adding, aiding great in giving the NBA a better reputation. We've already seen people from the National Basketball League, which is the Australian basketball comp. We've seen people like, a lot of people might not even know, my American viewers and my UK viewers, players like Torrey Craig came from the NBL. Who was James Ennis came from the NBL, so definitely some quality players, and Mitch Creek adds to that as well. So it's just great to see Mitch Creek, make it into the NBA and add to this new crop of Aussies representing, us on the biggest stage in basketball. Because before Bogut, man, nothing really happened. We had Gaze and Shane Hill and stuff like that, who, even though they won championships and stuff like that, at least Shane Hill for the San Antonio Spurs, they, didn't really make noise. Then we had Bogut, a number 1 pick, but, even though he made an All-NBA third team in one point of his career, did he really live up to a number 1 pick standard? Perhaps not. Maybe injuries derailed him. Then we had Exum, top 5 pick, who I think is still going to be good, but, ACL injuries derailing him as well. That's unfortunate. And finally, someone like Ben Simmons, who's definitely slated to have his first NBA All-Star appearance. We have people like Thon Maker. God, who else am I thinking? Now I'm just sort of blanking. The Aussies, they know, who you are. Shout out to you guys. And God, I am tired. And because of that, I'll end it here. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you want to interact with me even further than you have for this 1 hour and 13 minutes and 18 seconds, if you want to interact with me further, you can find me on Twitter at 26JD. But if you don't use Twitter, if you don't like Twitter, you don't have Twitter, you can email me 26 23shotsofjd@gmail.com. If any questions, queries, things you want me to talk about, maybe you have homework that you want me to help you out. I don't know, really whatever. I can, we can have a bit of a convo and stuff like that, see what happens. Maybe take you out for a nice dinner date if you're a lady that's looking for a man. As well, probably the best place to find me is on Instagram because I love using Instagram. Just search through 23 Shots of JD and you'll find my profile. Follow, DM me, whatever, what you want me to, do and stuff like that. It's all good. But yeah, besides that, I think that's sort of it. Yeah, longer than usual podcast, but there was a lot of address, and sorry if this sort of me posting it when I'm gonna post it sort of doesn't help you guys, and I know it sucks, and I wish I wasn't pissed drunk on Saturday, but mate, gotta celebrate Australia Day, be a proud Australian, be true blue Aussie. But yeah.